Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Susan Brown, and I am the Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs. Tonight we will be talking with Rebecca Regan from the Office of Off-Campus Student Services. Rebecca is here to talk to you about apartment hunting and how their office can assist your student in the search when they're living off campus. Before we begin, Rebecca will be presenting information, and at the very end, we will take questions. You can see to the right of your screen, there's a Q&A pod on the right side of the screen. We will try to answer as many questions as possible, but please keep in mind, if for some reason we do not get to your question, you can email us at parents@neu.edu. So let's start. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, everybody, and good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I am happy to be here and talking to you all about living off campus and the apartment search process, which I know all of you, I'm sure, are very interested in learning about. So as Susan mentioned, I'm the Director of Off-Campus Student Services, and we are located right in the Curry Student Center, so really central on the campus here at Northeastern. So if your sons and daughters do not know where we are located, please pass this information on to them. We are on the second floor, number 226 in Curry, and our phone number is 617-373-8480, and our email is offcampus@northeastern.edu. All of the information that I'm going to be going over tonight is also on our website, which is northeastern.edu/offcampus. I'm sharing all of this with you because I just want to make sure that you have our contact information and that your student also has our contact information, because we help so many students on a daily basis and parents. So I just encourage you to call us, email us. If you're on campus, stop in and we can help you at any time. So these are the 4 areas where we really help students and parents. We help with the apartment hunting search process and advice. We help connect students and parents to landlords and roommates. We also review leases. A lot of students, most students, have never read a lease, and if you parents are not familiar with the leases here in the area, I want you to be aware of that because we have this program called Lease Genius. And we also help with a lot of problems. So once a student moves off campus, our services don't stop once they find the apartment. So we are really there to help students navigate any problems that they might have off campus with their landlords or other issues. These 4 areas are going to serve as our agenda for this evening, and I'm going to go through each one individually. So a couple facts and figures to start off the evening. The percent of undergrads who do not live on campus is 50%. So as you all know, this is an urban campus. We have thousands of students who attend Northeastern, and 50% of them live off campus, which is a lot, and we serve all of them. How many live within a 1.5-mile radius of campus? Around 5,000. So this is all of the neighborhoods that are right close to campus where many of your sons and daughters may be living, and there are approximately 5,000 of students who we serve. There are major needs that we know that students have is finding quality housing, knowledge of rights, renters' rights, campus happenings, really knowing what's happening on campus, so even though they're living off campus, they know when to come back for campus for events and certain things that are going on. Okay, so to get into resources. So a lot of the advice and help that we provide students is not just through us meeting with students, but it's through a lot of these various resources that I'm going to go over. We have a student handbook that we have put together with great information, and that can be found electronically at tinyurl.com/NU Off-Campus Handbook. The similar information to this handbook is also on our website, which is at northeastern.edu/offcampus. So I very much encourage all of you that if you have any additional questions or want to look further into some of the information that I'm going over tonight, to go to our website. We've redesigned it as of last summer, so it's easy to navigate, and there's lots of information under the different tabs. This is information about our office. Again, we really encourage students to come into our office and see us face-to-face. To talk to us directly, we can hear everything that's going on, and we can give really solid advice. So we are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and Mondays 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. So if your student is on co-op and working during the day, have them come on Monday evenings, or have them call us or email us, and we can help them. And again, our email address is offcampus@northeastern.edu. We have student staff members who work in our office who are called community ambassadors. And this is a really great resource for your student because they are peers. These are Northeastern students who we have trained all about renters' rights, how to read leases, how to give advice in regarding to problems, things that are legal, illegal, and legal. And when your student comes into our office, they are often there along with myself and our assistant director to give advice to your student. So oftentimes students can get that peer-to-peer connection with these community ambassadors. Okay, so that is all of the resources that we have in regards to advice. So keep all of those in mind. The next area where we help a lot of students is we connect them and you to landlords and roommates. So one of the first things to think about that we always encourage students to do before you really start contacting landlords and realtors is to think about what neighborhood do they want to live in. Decide how close to campus, how far of a walk do they want to walk late at night. If they're, studying at Snell until midnight, do they want to walk the 20 minutes up to Mission Hill, or are they more interested in walking the 5 minutes to a closer location? Rent also depends on how close to campus you are. So the further you move closer to downtown Boston, the more expensive rent is going to be. The further out of the city that you move, rent gets a little less expensive. So rent is also a big factor. We have what is called the Online Housing Database. Now, this database, just to be clear, is different from our website. So we have our office website that has lots of information. Our housing database can be found, the link can be found on our website. You can get there from our website. I'm going to give you the URL in just a minute. But it's a separate database where your student has access through their Husky email address. You as parents can also gain access to this database by getting a guest account on that database. So once you go to the database, there will be a sign up button in the upper right-hand corner, and once you click on that, it's easy to navigate. What this database has is a number of listings from local realtors and landlords who have listings of apartments that are available. This is a great place to start to look for apartments in the area. I also highly encourage your student and you to use this site because there are certain realtors in the area who have proven to be good to our students, and those are the realtors who are on our database. If there's a particular realtor that you have found or have worked with in the past and you want to find out if they have been reputable to our students, please call us and ask us for advice. But if you stick with that database, you should be working with good people. I want to go over some of the neighborhoods where many students live. Fenway area, which is about 5 minutes from campus. Back Bay, which is a little further into downtown Boston, a little more expensive. And Mission Hill, which is about a 20-minute walk. So those are the three areas where a lot of students live. And there is a page on our website called Neighborhoods, and there is a lot of information about each neighborhood on that particular page. So if you're not from the Boston area, if you're not familiar with Boston, these neighborhoods, that's a great way to familiarize yourself with how they differ and where they are located in association with where Northeastern is. The next thing to think about is roommates. So your student is going to want to think about how many roommates do they want to live with. This is also going to affect how much rent is. So if they're living in a studio or one bedroom by themselves, that's going to be more expensive than if they're sharing an apartment with other people. So that will determine size of an apartment. Please know that Northeastern has a law, I'm sorry, not Northeastern, Boston has a law called the No More Than 4 Ordinance. And that is no more than 4 undergraduate students can live together in an apartment. This is not because Boston is trying to be annoying and prevent your child from living with 4 other people. It is because they want to prevent overcrowding. So they want to prevent landlords from packing in more students than who can safely live in that particular apartment. So no more than 4 undergrads. Grad students do not apply. So if there are 4 undergrads and they have a friend who's a graduate student, that is okay. But make sure that your son or daughter knows this law because if the city finds out, there could be a problem with an eviction. So just keep that in mind. If you have any questions about that, please contact our office and we can talk more about it. Again, please use the housing database because not only can you find apartments on that database, but you can also find roommates. There's a roommate section. So if your son or daughter does not have friends who they want to live with or they need an additional person for their apartment, they can go onto the database, they can create a profile for themselves, they can indicate the type of roommate that they're looking for, the lifestyle aspects that they're looking for, and they can search for roommates on that site, which is a great feature. Also, have your student look into their academic program. Does their academic program have a Facebook group or some other type of listserv that can connect them to other people in their program? If so, that is also a good way for them to connect with other students who might be good roommates. Okay, so this is the housing database URL, aptsearch.northeastern.edu. So once you go there, you will see in this screenshot of the database in the upper right-hand corner is a red button. I know it's kind of small. It says sign up at the very top on that gray bar is a sign up button. So just click on that and then you will want to choose the option guest. And then what you will do is you will say that you are a parent, you'll put in the name of your son or daughter, and then that will allow you to get a guest account that we will approve in our office. That way you can look at this database as well as your student to help them along through this process. Okay, the housing database. This is just a little more information about it, just to kind of give you a visual infographic about the different features of the database. So it helps find apartment listings. You can find roommates. You can also find what is called a sublet. And for those of you who might not be familiar with that term, what that is if your son or daughter is planning on going away on co-op for a semester out of Boston, or if they are going home for the summer and they only want an apartment for one semester or a couple of months, they can sublet an apartment from another student for a short period of time. There's a lot more information about sublets on our website. I'm going to go over a little bit here tonight, but that is one feature about the database where students can find short-term leases as well. And this whole database is free. And it is only for Northeastern students and university students in this direct area. So it's not like Craigslist or other sites where anybody can access it. So it's really just students. So that hopefully will, help you in any worries that you might have about other people that you might not want your son or daughter living with. Okay, so this is information. I'm going to go over information about a couple of programs that we have that provide more information about this process of living and moving off campus. We have what are called living off campus workshops. So if your student is currently living on campus or is living off campus and didn't feel like their first go-around went very well and they would like more information, have them come to one of these off-campus workshops. We've already had 2, great success, lots of turnout. The next 2 are on February 8th at 6:30, and the last one is on February 13th, also at 6:30. So if your student is thinking about moving off campus, please write these dates down and encourage them to attend, because we're going to be going over a lot of the information I'm going over tonight and some additional information for them to help them start this process with the right knowledge in order to do it right. I'll be putting this slide up at the very end just in case you need to have it. Okay, so the other program that we have is the apartment fair, and this is being held on February 1st from 4 to 7 p.m. in the Curry Indoor Quad. This is an opportunity for your student to come and meet realtors. These are all realtors who are on our database who we recommend to students, and they can come and they can talk to all of these realtors. They can see who they like, who they might want to work with. They can see what kind of listings that these realtors have. I like to call this a nice one-stop shop for students to be able to go to get this process started. We also have a lot of on-campus resources and off-campus resources that students can speak with as well while they're there. I will be there, all of our staff will be there, so any questions that your son or daughter may have, we will be there to answer those questions and help them along. So please write down this date and pass this along to your students as well. So, why go? Why should you tell your student to attend the fair? Because they need to find a quality realtor. Again, using the database in order to find that realtor. And these are some of the aspects of a quality realtor and what we consider important. Do they list an office location? You would be surprised how many apartments are listed by somebody on Craigslist or other sites, and they don't even have an office and they're not legitimate. So all of these places who will be at the fair have actual locations that a student can go to meet a realtor face-to-face, which is very important. Do they answer questions? Oftentimes, realtors who are not very good oftentimes will be evasive about answering questions and giving the right answers. So the student can come to the fair and answer all the questions they have to these realtors and get answers from them. And does the realtor show them real and available properties? I can't tell you, every single year we have situations where students will pay money and rent an apartment sight unseen, and that apartment does not actually exist. So all of these realtors who are going to be at the fair show real properties that exist. It seems far-fetched, but it happens every single year. And companies that are in good standing with the Better Business Bureau, also very important. And having a realtor pass the gut test. You know, when I often tell students, if they feel like that conversation isn't going well, if they feel like their questions are not being answered, that they're being taken advantage of by this realtor, to move on. So again, come to this fair and meet the quality realtors that have worked with our students for several years now. Here is a list of things to consider when your student is looking for an apartment. Pick roommates carefully. This is another aspect of advising that we often do, is helping students with roommate issues. And so you want to make sure that they know who they're living with, or at least know as much as they can about that person. Do they trust them? Will this other roommate be paying their rent on time? Things like that. So really being conscious of who they're living with. And you as parents, asking them those questions to make sure that they do know this person. Plan for first, last, security, and broker fees. So there are 4 legal fees that a realtor can ask for when you are renting an apartment. And that is first month's rent, last month's rent, the security deposit, which can be no more than 1 month's rent. If there are no damages to the apartment, you should get that entire security deposit back at the end of the lease. If there are damages, the cost of those damages are taken out of the security deposit. But again, the security deposit can be no more than 1 month's rent. The broker fee is the fee that goes to the realtor. That is a fee, and unfortunately you don't get that back. And that as well can be no more than 1 month's rent. That equals a lot of money. So I say that up front just so your student is fully aware of sort of what that upfront cost is when they sign a lease. But of course, it's going towards their first month's rent and their last month's rent. There are often other fees that realtors will sometimes try to charge students. There are many illegal fees that are being charged to students. I will go over some of them a little later in this presentation, but these are the only 4 that you and your student should be paying when you sign a lease. If you have any questions about any additional money that a realtor is asking you to pay, I encourage you to contact us and ask us if that is okay and legal, and we will guide you through that. Review the financial award of your student. Sometimes financial awards will cover living expenses. So we cannot give you those answers, unfortunately, because we don't know the type of financial aid that your son or daughter may have. But call your financial aid advisor, and they can give you that information based on your student. The other thing to keep in mind is students here in Boston are required to have a cosigner. A cosigner, as many of you may know, is someone who backs up the student by saying, if my student does not pay rent, I will pay that rent for them. So it protects the landlord or the property manager who owns the property from a student who might default on rent. The reason is that all of these students are students and don't have a set income or proof of income. So if you are asked to sign a cosigner form, that is standard, that is normal, and all students in the area are asked to have a cosigner. The standard lease here in Boston is September 1st through August 31st. That does not mean that you cannot find an apartment at other times of the year. It just means that the amount of selection is less outside of those dates. So the most apartments that are available start on September 1st. The next start dates that are popular are January 1st and then June 1st. So just keep that in mind that most students move on September 1st. And a note on that, because most students are moving on September 1st, it can be a crazy day, but our office manages a huge effort off campus to help students with that process in terms of we're out there with Boston Police, navigating traffic, making sure everything goes smoothly with parking, etc. So I want to remind you that if your son or daughter is moving off campus starting next September, we will be having more information on our website next summer about that move-in process and how to make it easy for you, parents, when you're driving here and parking and moving them in. So just keep that in mind. Also, another expense just to keep in mind is that most apartments are unfurnished. So if your student is moving from on-campus to off-campus and they don't have any furniture, just think about that and keep that in mind in terms of either getting used furniture or buying furniture. And also think about, is subletting a good option for your student? Is, not signing a lease from September to August work because they're going on co-op or going abroad, and so is subletting something that they should think about. So here are some of the reasons why subletting may be good for your student. They plan to go home for the summer. They want to study abroad or go on co-op outside of Boston. They don't wish to purchase furniture, or they don't want to sign a year lease. So to sublet, as I mentioned, we have this option for them to look for sublets on our database. So use the database. Once your student is in the database, and when you have a guest account and you go into the database, you will also see this. At the top of the page are these search fields, more filters. So you can filter if they want a one-bedroom, a two-bedroom, how many bathrooms, how much rent do they want to pay. And you will see in the lower right-hand area, it says listing type. If they click on sublet and hit search, that will bring up all the listings that are listed under sublet, which again are those short-term listings that are anywhere from a month to several months to a whole semester. So determine what they want: rent, distance to campus, and what they'll want to do is communicate with the owner of the listing directly. So these sublets will be listed by other students who've already signed a lease. They might be going abroad or going in co-op and they don't want to pay their rent. So they've listed their apartment on the site for another student to sublet for a short period of time. So your student will want to contact that individual who's listed on that sublet listing. The other housing option that we have available in terms of information is temporary housing. This can be found at northeastern.edu/offcampus/temporary housing. And you're probably asking, well, when would my child need temporary housing? That is because oftentimes if a program starts early in August and they need to arrive before their September 1 lease starts and they need a place to stay, this is a great option to carry them over for a couple of days, for a couple of weeks until their September 1 lease starts. The other situation that often happens is a lease might end early in order to give a landlord a couple days to clean that apartment before the new tenants come in. So if a lease ends on the 27th or the 28th of August, they might have a couple of days before their lease starts. Again, they might need a couple of days in a temporary housing location. If your student lives on campus, that on-campus housing often ends mid-August. This often comes as a big surprise to students when they realize that they have to move out of their on-campus room, but their off-campus lease does not start until September 1st, leaving them with around 2 weeks of having to find housing. So this is a great option. So if you go to this list on our website, it will list a number of places in the area where they can book a space for themselves to stay. We also have a list on our website for moving companies and storage companies. So if they need to move all their belongings out of their on-campus housing and store it before their off-campus apartment starts, we also have that information. Okay, so we went over connecting to landlords and roommates. The next area of help that we provide is the Lease Genius, our Lease Genius program. So what this is we highly encourage students to bring us their lease or email us the electronic copy, and we read it for them to let them know if it's a standard lease, if there's anything that's illegal in that lease, if there's anything that they need to be concerned about in that lease, or if there's anything in that lease that is legal, but we need to point out that they should really be aware of for that particular apartment. So we always encourage students to have us read the lease before they sign it. So please know that a student and you have the right to read that lease before you sign it. So if there's any landlord or realtor that tells you in the office that you have to sign that lease before you have the opportunity to read it, that is illegal. You have that right to take that lease with you, to read it before you sign it and decide if you want to sign it. If your student has already signed that lease and they are unsure about what the contents of that lease states, still have them bring it to us and we can tell them what it says and if there is anything illegal in that lease. And this is a screenshot of the typical lease that most students have here in Boston. It is called the Standard Form Apartment Lease Fixed Term. And so this is the area where their information will be on the front page of this lease. So one of the things we just want to make sure is all of the information about the tenants is listed on the lease. So important components of the lease: the name, address, contact information of the landlord. All of the names on the lease, all of the names of the students who will be living in that apartment must be on the lease. If any landlord tells your student, don't worry about it, student number 5 can live there, they don't need to be on the lease, it's okay, that is false. Do not let them tell your student this, because if their name is not on the lease, they are not protected by the lease, which means that they could be asked to leave and evicted at any point in time because they're not protected. So anybody who's living in that apartment needs to be on the lease. The amount of rent and the due date should be on the lease. The lease start date and end date. Name and contact info for repairs. That is usually on the front page, on the very bottom of the page. And the addendum. I would say 99% of leases here in Boston have what are called an addendum, which is additional rules and regulations determined by the landlord. Not all of these rules and regulations are illegal. We often discover that the longer the addendum, the more illegal clauses there are. So the addendum is where we really, really take a lot of time to read to make sure that that lease is in the best interest of your son or daughter. So I tell you all of this so that when your son or daughter finds a place and they get a lease, for you to ask your son or daughter to share that lease with you so that you can also take a look at it before they sign it. Okay, the fourth area is we help with problems. Some of the common problems are quality of housing at reasonable rates. So we really try to educate students on making sure that they are not settling for an apartment that is not up to par. We want to make sure that everybody is renting sanitary, clean, and safe apartments. Other issues that we see is repairs not being completed. Repairs must be made in a timely manner. If that is not happening, or your student discovers that their repairs are not being made, after request to that landlord, have them come see us because we can help significantly. You have the right, or your student has the right to a clean, sanitary, and safe apartment. We also help with the legal fees. So we help them navigate how to address those illegal fees with their landlord Just because it might be written in the lease does not mean it can be upheld. If it's illegal, it's illegal. Even though they sign the lease, they do not have to adhere to it, and we help students figure out what to do with those particular fees. Oftentimes, there could be an unresponsive landlord, so we help them figure out what to do from there. And roommate conflicts, as I mentioned. So we really help students kind of figure out what is the issue that's going on, how can we help, what other resources on campus can also help with some of those relationship issues. And as I mentioned, very important, the only people on the lease can live there. So oftentimes we see this problem where somebody is not on the lease and issues arise. I want to mention some scams, and these are common scams that we often see when students are looking for an apartment, and I want to make all of you aware of them as well. Only work with people and realtors you can meet in person. Do not get into a situation where you are agreeing to an apartment without ever seeing it or without ever meeting the person. Never rent a place you can't view. Never make payments in the form of cash or MoneyGram. Very, very important because, as you know, it can't be traced. This is an issue that we often see with international students who might pay their rent in cash. And if they leave that cash for their landlord doesn't receive it, there is no trace of it. So make sure that they're either paying by check or by electronic transfer. If it feels wrong, it probably is. So if there's something going on and your student is unsure or you are unsure about the situation, please just call us, email us, and we can walk you through that. And use our housing database. That's the best way to avoid a lot of the scams that happen on Craigslist and on other sites. I want to make a note that just because we have a lot of realtors on our database does not mean that students and parents never have concerns about any of these people that we work with. So I just want to make a note that as you're working with realtors, even if you've gotten them from our database, if at any time you're concerned about anything, please just call us and let us know what's going on. So some pro tips for you parents. What you can do through this process. Talk with your student about the housing search process from the very beginning. If they're starting now, this is a great time to start talking with them about it. Where are they looking? What neighborhood? Are they thinking about how far they want to be from campus? Are they thinking about their walk at night? What is the realtor like that they're working with? What do they think of them? Should they have any concerns? What does the apartment look like? On our website, not the database, but on our office website, we have PDFs of lists that you can reference to get some really good questions to ask a realtor and things to look at in terms of codes and code violations that will help you and your student. Have they read the lease? Ask them this before they sign it. Ask to see it yourself. Encourage them to visit us, to send it to us, to read it through our Lease Genius program. And take note of any fees that might be illegal or clauses in the addendum that you might be concerned about. And look at the apartment yourself. Go with them if you can, or make sure that they're going with another friend so there's a second set of eyes on that apartment. And if you're out of town and you want to see it, ask them to take photos and to send you those photos so you can see it yourself. Is it up to code? As I mentioned, we have a list of codes on our database. And does it meet fire safety regulations? Does it have a form of egress? Things like that. Okay, so I just want to mention again that to stop into our office, have your students stop into our office with any questions, and for you as parents to sign up for our newsletter. We have a newsletter that goes out every 3 weeks with lots of information that is pertinent to usually that particular month. So right now we have articles about the apartment finding process. So I encourage you to sign up for that, and you can find that sign up right on our website. And that is the end. So thank you very much. And now we definitely have time for questions, and I think a lot have come in, so we will start answering some of those.